Blackness is evolving in ways that we are not acknowledging and or paying attention to. I think there's certain conversations around like appropriation that always get lifted up, but it's other stuff happening.
Looking for the ultimate conversation on Black innovation and wealth creation?
Look no further. From Chains to Links brings together some of the top Black entrepreneurs, academics, creatives, and futurists
to discuss how we reimagine Black community
and build a collective vision for true Black prosperity.
So get ready. We're about to go there.
Hey, Ify.
Hey, Kelly.
How you doing, boo?
I'm so excited. How are you?
I am wonderful. I'm just proud of us that we've gotten to this moment on this podcast.
I know.
I mean, we talked a little bit about it in an episode, but I think it's helpful to just kind of go back to the origin story of this podcast.
I think, but you were thinking about a podcast for some time, right? Before we even, Like, what was your thought around just storytelling and like creating a space for that?
Yeah, it's so funny. You know, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Just because we are all so smitten by the idea from Chains to Links. We were so smitten. But I think, there are these conversations that we always have when we are in safe space with our friends, our relatives, our colleagues, or a happy hour at the barbecue, where you like, we as Black people need to boom, boom, boom. But there really is no public venue for us to have those hard conversations about how we as a people need to evolve, how we need to heal, how we need to show up. And not from a place of judgment, but from a place of aspiration and hope. Yeah. And so those are the conversations that I wanted to have. And out of a team meeting we had, the idea that bubbled up from you around Chains to Links, it was like, man, that perfectly encapsulates, that's the perfect vehicle to have these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, and as people know listening to this, and there are times where they will hear Black Innovation Alliance, but this is this is a bit broader than that. We both have entrepreneurial backgrounds and also support entrepreneurs. And when we think about the language and the words that are used to even indicate success or indicate growth, these words often bring about, at least for me, a bit of anxiety. They're so connected to labor. They're so connected to output. And I think that when we were having this conversation, and it was a whole room of us, y'all, like we were vibing and everybody was kind of like just thinking about like what really sets, when we think about building a Black ecosystem, what would make it different? Like what it would be so different. We have incubators, we have accelerators, we have grants, we have foundations, we have contracting, but those are activities. What exactly are we saying would be different in the Black ecosystem? Are we really just saying it's a space that's just the aggregate of those activities? That is one model. But I think what emerged was like, also a conversation of what is kind of missing from what we're hearing. And you touched on some of those things, healing being a huge part of it, and in some ways collective healing, but even like discourse that at times we may not all agree. Right. Or like we may have different definitions of, what does it mean to, when we say Black excellence, or what does it mean, what are our viewpoints when it comes to VCs, or why do some of us struggle when we hear the word unicorn, right? And I think that was in some ways what kind of spurred some of our conversation was like, whether by choice or by design, this work around innovation and entrepreneurship especially can be very isolating. Even though we know there's there are many of us, it can be an isolating experience. And the question is why? Why is it isolating if there's so many of us? Is it just about pulling in capital? We know people that have gotten a lot of money for their ideas, but that doesn't mean that they feel better or safer, and oftentimes get kind of removed from their own community. So I think at least at that moment, and I think it will continue to evolve for us, but from Chains to Links is like, we have this shared history that connects us it's not the only part of us that we're connected to. So the links part is like, how do we identify the linkages that we have as a community, number one, but also what does it mean for us to build as links, build linked together. And, you know, I'm thinking of this, this particular book, the, oh my gosh, oppressed is in the word, and I will come up with, I will definitely identify the word in a second, the title in a second. But this philosopher, who is a Latino philosopher, talks about how action and protest even are great and they're necessary, but oftentimes they can be the enemy of discourse.
Oh yeah.
And then discourse on its own, without the intent to actually do some type of action, will also in some ways turn into its own like elitist activity. But what does it mean for us to like not have the two compete with each other, but when they marry each other, that actually is what praxis is. And so I just feel like Chains to Links is a space where we're going to continue to learn how we practice better to link. And yeah, I think that's why I'm excited about all the people that, because everyone thinks differently about it.
Yeah, you know, and I think about the very singular experience it is to be like Black in America. Like, you know, when we think about Chains to Links, there's definitely a reference to slavery, but it's about this collective piece. What does it mean to go? Because a lot of times people think, oh, all disadvantaged groups are the same. And I'm like, yeah, nah, that ain't the case, because there's only one group that I know of that was considered property, right? Property. We were leveraging collateral. People took their slave rolls to the bank and got money. We were the most valuable commodity, more valuable than land at certain points. So what does it mean to go from being owned to being owners?
Right.
And that's a very specific trajectory. And I think we need to consider all of the ways that that experience made us resilient and strong, but has impacted us generationally in ways that might not necessarily be conducive towards our journey forward, right? And be able to unpack that in safe space where it's not about judgment.
Right.
It's not about vilification. It's not about coons or toms or all these other things that kind of tend to marginalize different thinking, but to say, let's create a space where we can really unpack this in love, right? In reverence for what we have all gone through, both on the continent and in the New World, because there's a lot of violence and extraction and theft and hurt and pain, regardless of where you kind of derive from or come from as a person of African descent. I just think there's so many conversations that need to be had, and I'm excited about creating a space that enables us to have them.
Yeah. And also the joy part, right? The ways that we innovate that often get missed. That's been like, so many of us share this like desire to like reclaim innovation, reclaim entrepreneurship, even reclaim collective impact, all of these terms that are used so much in now very corporatized ways. What does it mean when the community takes those words back? I'm excited as to how this season allows us to just invite really dope people that are innovating in their own spaces. Maybe by those who are listening, they've never heard of them or never even heard of their industry. That in itself is you know, an innovation. And I'm always really, really sensitive to the ways that innovation feels to us like it has to be something that's better than the next person or has to be brand new and it's like, no, innovation is like a way of doing things and it's a way of responding to things, way of fixing things and problem solving. So to invite problem solvers that also are trying to figure it out as to balancing the fullness of who we are while doing this work, and in many ways are practicing being the ecosystem now as we are hoping that people, over time accept the invitation to do things more together instead of as individuals. That's going to be, it's its own experiment. Who knows where we're going to be at the end of the season?
Yeah, excitement is the word that I keep coming back to, but I really am kind of giddy about it. I'm giddy about the possibility in this. What we'll be able to like tap into and unlock. I'm excited about to hear what other people think, because we're tackling conversations around Blackness and, baselines for Blackness and the essence of Blackness. And those are pretty dicey conversations and can be, because they're loaded. It has to mean something, but then if it means something, what does it leave out and who does it leave out? And I don't know if any of us have the answers, but these are the questions we need to be asking. Because Blackness is evolving in ways that we are not acknowledging and paying attention to. I think there are certain conversations around like appropriation that always get lifted up, but there's other stuff happening as it relates to Blackness that deserve attention and conversation.
For sure. And when you think about audience, who is the audience for Change the Links?
Who is the audience? See, I don't want to leave nobody out.
Who shouldn't be listening?
Well, if you ain't Black, I don't know. For real. I don't know. I think because the challenge is it's hard to really deal with your stuff with people who are gazing and peeking in and being voyeurs. Because they bring their own baggage and stereotypes and assumptions that are not rounded out and fleshed out. The assumption is if you're a Black person and you've been living in your Black skin, that you bring in some nuance, right? So yeah, is it exclusively for Black people? I would say no. But if you come in with an open heart to listen and to learn, then it's really open for everybody. But I think the folks who will really appreciate this are people who are thinking deeply about these questions, and they will hear something that strikes a chord in them because it's something that they are likewise curious about.
Yeah, I think my hope for this podcast, it's so ditto. It's similar to you, because like when it's very hard to be Black. The way Black has been designed has been so connected to white. It's just, it doesn't exist with the two actually don't exist without each other, as in the design of Blackness. And so when a construct that isn't real, but is real as in how it impacts your life, is created for you, it's very, very, it can be uncomfortable for some to say and to share their true thoughts around how they build, how they design, what their struggles are as they're doing it, when in many ways how their prosperity may be connected to like appeasing and pleasing white audiences.
Right.
We are taking a bit of a risk at this moment.
100%.
We do our own work. We have our own audiences. We have our own clients. And, for me, for both of us, we're researchers, which at the base of research should be truth. I think one of the things that I'm hopeful for is that people accept that, as you said, there's so many diverse ways of Blackness. There's also so many stories of truth. And we are leaning into the braveness of inviting a space where people's truths will be honored. And hopefully all of us would be able to benefit as to how we grow better, because we are now opening the door to that truth. I think of like what society would be, what our GDP would be, what our education would be if we just allowed truth. Like if we allowed for truth to exist and we didn't try to kill it, we didn't try to lynch it, we didn't try to exterminate it, we didn't try to have it assimilate. What then would that mean as to how we grow, how we produce? And that's a multicultural conversation. But if cultures don't want to accept the fact that Black people, as you mentioned earlier, have been both the wealth of others to the deficit of themselves, and then are also forced to jump rope in a wealth concept that also is already designed for us to be last, and the only way we can be first is to compete with our own, then it's like we're taking a risk, but it's a risk we have to take in some way. We're going to fumble. We're going to mess up. We're going to say things. We're going to cuss. We're going to, we may cry, but these are the things that we've been told that you cannot do and still be successful. But the weird thing is all the things we told that we should do, we still ain't.
Yeah.
We still ain't equal. So we might as well just go ahead and do the truth. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth. And I appreciate so much what you said about truth and there being multiple truths. I think part of it, maybe a muscle that we can build within the Black community, is the ability to hold multiple truths at once, right? And appreciate multiple perspectives at once. There are folks who I deeply respect, for which there are a number of things we don't agree.
Right.
How do you hold that? Like, how do we as a people hold that? Because it's necessary if we're going to have hard questions, if we're going to have hard conversations. You mentioned that we're both researchers, and at the foundation of truth is truth, but also inquiry.
Absolutely.
Inquiry and iteration, like learnings on top of learnings on top of learnings on top of learnings. So how do we create the sort of foundation that enables, that is strong enough to bear that?
Right.
I'm hoping that this will be a part of building that.
I hope so too. Is there any topic that you're looking forward to talking about the most this season?
I want to talk about collective economics.
That's your jam.
That's just my jam. That's where I'm most curious about. I just know there to be power in Black people, in the Black dollar, in ways that we haven't always talked about. I feel that we tend to recycle certain conversations, and we can't get out of that loop and think broadly about these things. So I am excited that our guests are expansive thinkers and are building community in their own respect and have insights around how you do that well. I'm expecting so many learnings from that, hopefully will be, useful for our listeners. How about you? What are you hoping? What are you looking forward to talking about?
I think maybe just because I'm in that moment of like, this, like hashtag failing while Black. That's my hashtag, of how we are allowed to fail. What does that look like? What does it look like to make a souffle and it doesn't rise? What does it look like when you forget to put an ingredient in? What is the cost of what it means to fail for us? I think there's a collective trauma around the silence of failing for Blackness. And I feel like the more we discuss our even perceptions of failing more in the public, or in spaces where we can go from, I trust this person, to I can publicly talk about it where I'm not ashamed. I think that that's helpful for innovators, especially and entrepreneurs, because failure is supposed to be a part of that process, but it's not actually something we can afford to do. So I'm just really interested in how people are humaning through their journeys. I think we're going to have amazing guests that are going to model transparency in that way. And that is a capsule. I feel like it's not just going to matter today. It's going to matter in the future. Things are getting more competitive, and the standard for how we even labor is questionable. The future of work is in the ballot. So what that means for us, I don't know. Do we have to run faster? Do we have to run harder? I don't know. But I hope that we get some people that help us to take a moment to appreciate ourselves in the process, because I know that's something I'm working on at the moment.
It's interesting when you said future of work. A lot of times people think in terms of automation, but also future of work in terms of how we choose to labor out in these streets.
That's right.
And how we choose to prioritize rest, out in these streets, and model it for one another and hold one another down when they choose to prioritize rest, which is a whole other, how do you be a support system for a community that is really operationalizing rest?
And even as we're as you say that, I really do believe in my mind, we're not going to stop automation,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think that humanity is going to exist within communities.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's going to be an individual venture. It just can't be.
Yeah.
And so I think that, this vision of a Black ecosystem that is one of collective economics, community agreements, transformative justice, ways that we can resolve conflict and still feel like we're about, the community and not necessarily going to be cast out immediately.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of practice.
Yes.
And I just feel like we're a tool. This is a tool for us to kind of create opportunities for that. What I think is a beautiful space for us to move towards, but it's also one we're being forced to move towards because the world is moving in that way. But I love that we are being proactive about like how we have these conversations, as you mentioned, safely, because there will be a moment where we will have to have these conversations in other audiences.
Yeah.
And it may not be as safe, but we will be stronger if we do it together.
100%. And speaking of that, thank you for doing this together with me.
Oh,
I'm grateful for you.
I feel honored.
Yeah,
I feel honored.
Grateful for you and the
Grateful
voice
for you
that
too.
that you hold, and like all that you mean, and excited about your new book that's coming out.
I don't even know why you do this, Kelly.
I love it so much.
I'm excited about your book
I'm
too.
so proud of you.
Thank you.
You want to talk a little bit about it before we break away?
Before I do that,
yes.
I also want to say I'm grateful for you. I actually wrote a post about it this morning.
Aww.
And grateful in the sense that I literally said this morning that as a consultant, most times what happens is so for those that are listening, Kelly pays some of my bills.
Black Innovation Alliance pays some of Ife's bills.
Pays some of my bills. But I feel like it's obviously so much more than that at this stage. But I do think that, my jam is like policy is my love language. Equity is like my practice. And when you speak to folks about a vision, oftentimes they want parts of it and pieces of it. So I'm so used to that. So I remember coming to you and being like, Kelly, this is the vision for Decade of Black Innovation. And you laugh because you already know what I'm going to say. And I'd be like, so what part of this are you vibing with? And your only answer was yes. And I was like, what? Like which thing?
I want all of it.
Which one? And I'm like, I don't know her. So it can't be all of it because like, what?
All of it.
And I just was like, you're not supposed to trust me with all of it because it also has a lot of me. And sometimes we don't like to say this as designers, but there was a lot of me in there.
Yes, there is a lot of you in there.
I was waiting for like, okay, she may not like the kneecaps or the ashy ankles, but she gonna take these cheekbones. She gonna take the nails because I know they're manicured. Like, but you were like, yes. And so what was wild is that this was one of the first spaces, I think vividly of two spaces. And this is one of them where it was like, oh, this place wants the whole person, not just the product from the person. And that is wild. You've guided this team through having a book club. I've never had a client do a book club child in my life, every week at a meeting, like chapter 4, I can tell which ones haven't been reading. So how about the ones that haven't been speaking? What are your thoughts? Right. And it was on Crucial Conversations.
Shout out to Crucial Conversations.
And it wasn't even about the book as much as like we are doing it together. Yeah. And we also are Black. So it was like, we knew we were going to have our zhuzh on top of the words that were in the book. So I say all that to say that in so many ways we have practiced this from chains to links because we all really were individual chains. Yes. And you have worked really hard to not just have us be in a space building for Blackness as separate individuals. So thank you for that. Thank you for that space. Thank you for taking this whole ass Nigerian American disabled femme person, dog mommy out here in these streets who can get really intense only because my parents are mad intense, but like is silly as fuck. And told y'all there was gonna be cussing. And like, I say all that to say that's who I am.
Yeah,
That's who I am. And I really, really value that. And very quickly, the book, The Equity Mindset, is really about how human beings, not these definitions, definitely not DEI. That's not what this is about. How people who are doing this work and struggling to make sure they are moving the needle, because ultimately for me, equity is something about like when you step in the room, what changes when you leave, that are moving the needle, but are also coming into these spaces being impacted, deeply impacted by the impacts of their intersectionality. And so I hope y'all enjoy the conversations. As you know, I wrote it while also experiencing long COVID.
Yes.
So I look at some of these paragraphs and I'm like, what was I saying? But I also recognize that like I was pushing through a disability, and sometimes we are even ashamed of sharing that, or, you know, being honest about that. But I am excited that I hope the point of it comes through.
Well, if anyone knows you even a little bit, even when you're tired, you're pretty damn brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
You can't help yourself.
Thank you.
You know, just stuff be falling out your mouth. And I'm like, oh, that's a whole media property.
As long as I eat something first, because y'all have also heard me. Shout out to the production crew that's actually laughing right now. You know, as long as I get me an orange or a slice of something. Otherwise, it just be like bread, car, tree, brilliant, who?
Stop it.
Apple. So, but thank you so much.
We're going to have so much fun on this.
I think it's going to be a great season.
It's going to be fantastic.
And we want to shout out everyone who helped make this happen.
100%.
Carbon Thread team, Studio J. Lauren, all the BIA folks, Pink Cornrows team.
Yes, absolutely.
We're just, it takes a village.
It takes a village. And all our amazing guests that'll be joining us, you know. Folks don't realize people got to break away from their lives and their jobs and their babies and they chilling and they need time to be sharing space with us. It's an in-person podcast. And so, you know, we wanted to do it, not to say do it right, but we really wanted to put our foot in it to the extent that we could.
For sure.
And that, you know, placed a different demand on people's time. So also grateful for all the people who are giving up their time and their voice to break bread with us.
Can't wait to see what happens on the other side.
Let's do it. Yay. All right, y'all. What y'all think? Did you like it? Y'all know y'all liked it. It was good, right, Iffy?
They know they liked it.
They know they liked it. If you like it, make sure you subscribe and that you find it on all your streaming platforms and that you like it and you love it and you heart it and you give us the prayer hands. And the applause.
All the good emojis.
All the good emojis.
Share it with your friends. Share it with your stories.
Share it with your mama.
Bring a friend.
Share it with your grandmama. And your cousins?
We apologize for all the cursing grandmama.
Yeah, okay, don't share those episodes. But definitely all the people who you know and love and know will appreciate this conversation about how we advance the cause for Black folks in this country and around the world. Love y'all.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Hope you loved the episode as much as we did. Join us at BlackInnovationAlliance.com to continue the conversation. And remember to subscribe, like, and share the podcast as we continue to build the movement for true Black prosperity.